Yeah, I'm gonna record this to the cloud, so if anybody wants to go back, I'll review it. We're not gonna cover everything. I got about an hour, and then I have to rip up a floor before Home Depot comes. So, uh, yeah, as you guys know, if you're in doing co-living, it's a huge topic. I was telling Jake I got frog in my throat. The kids brought home a bug from school like the day before they started holiday break. So sorry about that. But like co-living, if you're in it, there's 20 different ways to do it. I want to open this up as like a discussion on how I'm doing it. Right now, I only have two properties, eight units out of those properties, and then I'm looking to double that with my third property. But yeah, if anybody has anything to bring up, anything to add, please unmute yourself. Bring it up. There's not a whole bunch of us where, we just sit tight. So, yeah, how I got started, I guess, with co-living was penciling down here in Colorado Springs. And, my whole why, my whole background is I want to provide affordable housing to individuals. I knew this 14 years ago when I let my sister, rent my basement, 2-bedroom, 1-bath. And it just dawned on me like, oh man, I knew this a decade and a half ago on how to go about actually helping people in this space. And here I was struggling for about a year on how to do that. So it's been really good. I'm actually really glad that the market kind of forced me into the co-living direction. And I found a whole bunch of people that know what they're talking about. I joined a mentorship called Livingsmith. Grant Shipman, he's up in Denver. Talking with those guys, I'm kind of manipulating it a little bit just based on what we have down here. And then, my own personality when it comes to actually running these houses. So one of my houses is just a master lease where I'm taking care of all the common stuff, all of the property and asset management. And then the guy is actually working with a lot of nonprofits, and he's the one that's actually putting people into the property. So it's actually pretty nice where I don't have to talk with people. I just have to deal, with the actual structure and everything like that. And then I got 50% vacant, 50% filled, 50% vacancy, whatever, half glass, half full, half empty, whatever, on the second property. And yeah, that one we're actually opening up on the first, and I already have two tenants that are starting to move their stuff in this weekend. So it's actually really good. I'm going to be full up within 30 days. And that one, Taya reached out to me. I should be doing a podcast on kind of like failing forward and, making lemonade out of lemons. So it should be pretty interesting. But yeah, it definitely is going to take care of itself. If you guys aren't in the co-living space, I highly suggest at least trying it once. It quintuples, sextuples how many problems you can have in a single house with all those people. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. So yeah, I just wanted to go into like the different types that I kind of sat down and went through. And then if anybody else can think of anything else, please bring them up. So obviously the big name in the room when it comes to co-living is pad split. I haven't really seen a house that works too well, at least in Colorado Springs, unless it's like this massive thing where you want to take away all of the living rooms and all those spaces. And then just how those houses are run, I don't necessarily agree with that. Conflict resolution is by just having people not run into each other, that type of thing. Like you only have a table where there's 2 chairs at in the kitchen. So I was like, pad split's probably not for me. Things aren't necessarily penciling with that anyway. It's just based on how much they take per month. There's traditional rent by the room. I look that way where, it is just traditional where people are used to that. Or you got, hey, I have a room for rent. There's a bathroom down the hall, or, you have the entire basement to yourself. There's a separate entrance, that type of thing. Sober living, I'll count that as co-living. I mean, there's plenty of Zooms involved on sober living and the power that's behind that one. Other nonprofits. So I spoke with, I'm going to forget her name right now. Not Jessica Taffison. I spoke with her, Jessica Taffison, and she's down in Miami. She does a lot of capital raising. Talisa Stubbs. So I spoke with Talisa a couple of months ago about how she's going about co-living, and you know what? I'm gonna see if she can actually hop on here one of these other weeks. And so she's actually doing like rent by the bed, and she's focusing on serving domestic violence survivors where they need to have roommates, where they need to have people that are there. And so she'll put, in a master bedroom, 2, 3, 4 ladies in there and charge, a couple of $100 per bed, but she's doing good work. Master leased, kind of co-living where you're taking care of the property, somebody else is taking care of all the tenants. And then how I am going about my co-living, it's called household led, and that is where I am seating all the residents in. And there was a really good quote, and it's not when there's going to be conflict, it's not if there's going to be conflict, but there's going to be when there's conflict, and then how people get through that. And with household led, the how you get through conflict, I guess, is one and the same. And so instead of pad split, there needs to be a space where people can congregate and like work through the household problems. You're trying to create a community inside of the house, in that, there's shared birthdays, there's chore boards, there's where everybody shares and has buy-in into that house. So those were the ones that I went through and I looked at. Does anybody have anything wildly different than what I mentioned, or does anybody want to expand?
You want me to jump in, just kind of say where I'm at and what we're doing?
Yeah, absolutely, please.
Cool. Yeah, and like we haven't gotten to catch up until here, so this will be a good kind of intros. So me and my business partner Toby were in Denver proper. We come from the rent to own space, so we're helping people become homeowners. But like you were saying, John, like it's hard to pencil even co-living. So that's why we're at least in co-living. And I think we can make it work without cramming too many people into a home. So we're actually set up. We've had Pad Split come and speak at our cash flow club investor group, and they asked us to be like their kind of preferred vendor for the management side. So we've been kind of working with them to get Pad Split up and running. So we were supposed to have something last week, a house we actually helped set up, got all the furniture in. Pad Split, just to kind of comment on them, that they've become more flexible. They're giving us as managers and or landlords more flexibility on how we do it. And so we don't have to cram a house totally full and limit those community spaces. We actually do want to create community as long as the residents are down with it. Some people don't want to, but like we want to make that a focus, because I think people need it even if they don't think they want it, and so the house we set up, it was actually it's a 3-bed upstairs, 3-bed downstairs, separate kitchens also, and separate laundry, and then 2 separate living spaces. The one downstairs is just a table with some bench and chairs. Upstairs we actually put in a couple comfier chairs and a love seat, no sofa, because I know Atticus from Pad Split kind of against sofas where people can sleep. or do whatever. So yeah, we've kind of created that more of a living room. There's no TV on the wall, but there's a living room, and we're planning on getting some board games and books, and the board games more of like Pictionary kind of things that create more engagement, and then it also has a kind of more of a pub table in that kind of shared space, living room / dining room. So that's what kind of where we're heading. Just getting off the ground with pad split specifically in Denver, and I know they won't do the marketing for you guys down the Springs. But I think maybe once Denver's up and running, even though your population isn't 500,000 or more, I think, which is kind of why they identified Denver as a good market. They might open it up and do the marketing, but you can use them where you use the platform. They'll actually do the screening and the background checks, all that stuff, and the communication and billing and stuff, but they won't do the marketing part, like put the money into that. I forget what they call that. It's kind of a way to use the platform. So
Yeah,
but if
because
you can do it yourself.
Like the whole thing with pad split is they take care of the tenants, they find the tenants, and somebody was telling me, like down in Atlanta, they even go as far as like, hey, there's only so many parking spots for this house, and then they'll find tenants that either will fill up the parking spots, or if you're at the cap, they will restrict tenants who are coming with vehicles. Have you run into anything like that yet?
No, we haven't. It's obviously like one of the biggest problems is parking. So like this house, it doesn't have a lot. It has one long driveway that goes back to a garage. Only one person can park there. And then I know there's an extended family across the street with all sorts of cars, so they kind of plug up the opposite side. So there's at most maybe 2 parking spots in front. So we were going to ask the additional residents, if they have cars, just to go around the corner on the next street. Just it's 2 houses they'd have to walk by, that kind of set that rule in place just so it doesn't become a problem with the neighbors. So
Yeah,
that was
that was a big thing. And it goes back into, you don't need every house on the block, you need the right houses. Like just house area, house type. And that's what I'm running into. That's what we try to do, is every adult will probably come with their car. And so now, okay, is a couple going to move in? That could be 2 cars, which a shared driveway, it can be pretty good. But, if you have somebody who rents out the garage for their car because they want to or whatever, and then somebody parks behind them, now there's an area of conflict that could potentially happen. I have to wake them up. They're, not home. They went out, X, Y, and Z. And so that's definitely something where the house that I have right now, I believe we're good with 4 parking spots, but it's a 2-car garage and 2 cars can fit in the driveway. No, if there's cars in the garage, then that driveway has to be open, and then everybody else is just stuck on the street. So yeah, it's definitely, ordinances. I know, I forget who is up in Longmont that wanted to join on the Zoom, but I think Longmont was the first, or maybe it was Estes Park, somewhere up there. In Colorado, you can have residents with 0 parking. And yeah, it's wild where, but it has to be close to a bus stop. It has to be close to, like the light rail or something like that. But yeah, it's definitely picking and choosing the property type, and the area is definitely super important.
Was it Reed or his partner Justin from Longmont that was going to jump on?
And I forget who.
Yeah, you're part of Subto, aren't you, John?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Actually, I don't think Reed is. Do you know? of those guys. Actually, I don't think Reed's pretty Subto. Anyway.
Yeah, no, it's we had a bunch of people. Dan Gunther. He's up in Longmont. Yeah, no, it's just super interesting when you're talking about like balancing all the different requirements when it goes into co-living, and like parking spots. That's like one of the last things that you're looking at. But if this is going to be not just a fallback, which for me it was a fallback on our current house, but if you're going in and you're actually planning on making this house into co-living, parking spots, because you want people to want to be inside of your house, and you want them to really want to stay for as long as possible. And if they're getting into conflict because of something as stupid as a parking spot, like, okay. Same thing when you're talking about like common spaces. So I furnish all of the common spaces inside my houses. Sofas or whatever, different seating arrangements, televisions. I try to get the Wi-Fi networks, the mesh networking for Wi-Fi, and I just try to make as little opportunities for conflict as possible. So I buy the toilet paper, I buy the paper towels, and that's $100 worth of supplies, and it just keeps everything smooth at the end of the day. But I try to have it be household led, and I tell all of my residents, which is another thing. So they're not tenants. I don't call them tenants, I call them residents, because that just gives them ownership in their mind. It gives them a little bit more respect, I suppose, as opposed to like, hey, this is my house, my rules are the highway, X, Y, and Z. Like, I have 2 documents. I have the lease, like you should, and then there's the household covenant, which are all the like, how we're going to go about living together types of things. And all of those things are more or less mutable. So like, hey, there's no drinking in common areas. Well, if somebody wants a beer with their meal, the house can talk about it. And I say there's no public intoxication or impairment, because that can get ridiculous. But like, yeah, if you want to have a beer with your meal, like some of those things are actually put into place for people to talk about. Be like, hey, I would actually like a glass of wine, or whatever. It's like, yeah, me too. Okay, well, let's talk with John, and we'll put in the household covenant that instead of no alcohol in the common areas, we can have a beer. We just can't get sloppy drunk. Okay, perfect. Driving conversation, driving community, and there's little like things that you can put inside of these agreements outside of the lease, because you really don't want to mess with that lease. The lease is like, here are the rules. These are immutable. These are the late fees, X, Y, and Z. It's the agreements that they sign on how they're going to go about conflict resolution, how they're going to say, hey, no guests past 10 p.m., those types of things that really drive conversation. And at first they might be clutching their pearls, and then you just reiterate to them like, let's have this conversation. And that's everything to me with co-living is communication.
I love that. Yeah.
Hey,
People want autonomy.
hey, John and James, thanks for your input so far. My name is Jake, and I'm new to Subto. Just joined a couple weeks ago, and not new to the real estate space, but I would say that, first and foremost, I thank you for your insight so far. And being in Colorado, I actually live in Northern California, but I lived in Centennial for 3 years, so I'm very familiar with the areas you're in. And I would say I'm in a unique situation because of the fact that being in NorCal, I'm not too excited to invest. I have no buy and hold properties as of this point. Looking to do at least 6 properties at 25. And not too sure I want to do NorCal. I would like to, just because it's convenient and it's local. But you know, I'm not too keen on the landlord laws, and I'd like to be in the southeast or, you know, more red states, more friendly in that aspect. But I'm definitely drawn to the co-living area because of the potential. But you know, it sounds as though, you know, there's, for convenience aspect, you've got the pad split, where they're handling a lot of this, but then you've got to, you know, really ramp out the house and, you know, take the living room out and put in a bedroom and kind of pack them in like sardines. And, you know, there's a lot of things that go, you know, pros and cons to that. But, you know, I know, John, you had mentioned in your post that you do the traditional method as far as property manager, and just kind of wondering, you know, somebody who's new into this, who would like to, you know, potentially even partner up with people, actually wouldn't mind my first deal or so, if it calls for that. But somebody who's coming into this, what are the biggest things you're looking for in a potential property? I mean, obviously it sounds like the parking spaces are number one. What would be your top three, depending on if you're going a pad split or if you're going a traditional route or even just self-managing?
Well, HOA, that's a big one. So when we're doing property searches, either, so low hanging fruit with this, and John, feel free to jump in. I'm just kind of taking over, but you know, low hanging fruit is taking an existing property that fits. So we kind of layer on, you know, what is there an HOA? Will it cash flow? Obviously, parking, those kinds of things. Not median price range, not too high. You know, although there are some people doing co-living in really nice neighborhoods, but we're kind of more in the BC class, because we're more focusing on just the general affordable space for working people, you know, because we're solving that affordability problem where some people may want to live in like a nicer home and pay a higher amount, where it's maybe closer to what a one-bedroom apartment would be, right? So, but the same principles apply to either taking an existing rental, maybe it's somebody just wants to cash flow more with an existing one, or go find something on market, or a Subto. And so the same principles and same buy box apply with no HOA, parking, all that.
Yeah, the HOA, if you have like a larger team or some partners, and you know, this house in an HOA looks like it could be fantastic, just crack open the bylaws of that HOA and it might work out. I know some people who do have co-living in some HOAs, and you know, the HOA just takes care of the exterior, like, hey, you can't have trash or, you know, anything like that. And then the bylaws of the HOA are actually, you know, lesser than some of them inside of like the gated communities, that type of thing. And what I'm actually going to try to do is crack open Class A co-living. The one on my post, if you saw that thing is like 5-bedroom, 4-bath, but there's an office suite that has an additional like 3-bedroom, 2-bath attached to it. And it's in Colorado Springs. The Broadmoor is, you know, where all the millionaires live and all that other stuff. And there's 10 parking spots because it's a corner house and there's no HOA, and it's just like all lining up. I just have this stupid agent that won't respond to me. So I'm probably gonna go direct to seller, but yeah, definitely, you know, parking area. The area that I have the house that I'm just filling now, it's by the airport, and you're gonna get certain people that need to live near the airport based on that price point. I use Rentometer for just general kind of how things look from a rent perspective. And if it's not a master, then I look at how much a studio is renting for in the area. For the masters, I kind of look at those 1 bedroom, 1 baths. And then you can also play with it because it's no longer an apartment. It's an actual house with a yard. And depending on if you're going to allow pets, no pets. For me, I allow pets only in the private room and in the backyard. But that's not in the lease. That's actually in the agreement, the covenant. So if the rest of the household is okay, this one lady, she wanted to bring a German Shepherd. And it's like, well, we can, but I'm going to have to ask the other 3 people living with you if they're okay with a German Shepherd, you know, with allergies and all that other stuff. So,
and that becomes a problem if somebody moves out, somebody wants to move in, they are allergic or afraid of a German Shepherd, which I am.
Mm-hmm.
I've had some run-ins with German Shepherds. Anyway.
Well, you know, people and on how they take care of their animals, and you know, that's a really good point, because if the German Shepherd is already there, what are you to do? Because the less I find, the less fingers you have in the pie of your own, the happier the house is, because now they have buy-in. But now, hey, we're gonna have to go back to where your German Shepherd can't be in the common spaces and all that other stuff. Well, that person's gonna be pissed off, and now you have 2 empty rooms instead of just 1 empty room. So yeah, it's all an art. It's all about communication and just knowing, like, if you allow animals, especially cats, and like the larger dogs inside of those common areas, you're going to reduce the amount of people that are willing to come in. Yeah, Ashley, about not allowing larger size of dogs. Whatever you feel comfortable with and what you are seeing in your area. Oh, that's the other place that I get a lot of my potential residents, is just in the Facebook groups of people looking for affordable housing. They tell you how much they are willing to pay for a single room with a shared bathroom. And you just go through the history, and like in Colorado Springs, it's sitting right around $750 to $850, depending on what it is. So when you're talking about larger size dogs, you can even go into these Facebook groups and just start asking, like, hey, I have a room for rent. Like, is this something that people are comfortable with? And then you'll get, you know, all the Facebook comments about, yeah, I'm totally okay with dogs. Oh, dogs are the worst, you know, that type of thing. So, but yeah, larger size dogs. So for co-living in Colorado Springs, I joined about 10 different Facebook groups, and I mean, it's all algorithmic. So I just started talk about rooms for rent, and then my entire Facebook feed started to fill up with it. And I just started to pay attention to what individuals were asking for. And you can actually, I guess, learn about your competition. When somebody says, hey, I'm looking for a room for rent, you just go into the comments, and besides all the scammers and spam bots, you just like start reading what other people are offering. And then, you know, if they show a Zillow page or anything like that, you can see what area it is. Generally, I'm finding the working class neighborhoods, not a whole lot of people want to live like down by the airport. I'm seeing in all of the comments, hey, I'm looking like north. I'm looking, you know, in the nicer areas. And it's like, you know, good luck, lady. Because those are, you know, HOAs, or those are gated communities up there, but they don't know, because a lot of people are also moving in, and you'll see those comments as well. Like, hey, I'm moving in from Florida. I just saw a guy today, and I just started up a conversation in the comments with him. He's coming from Florida because his daughter works at the Air Force Academy here. And so he's looking for a single room to rent. And now I have to think, okay, is this guy going to want to drive 30 minutes to go see his daughter? Maybe have the conversation. So It's definitely using the algorithm and just asking the questions. That's where I've been getting a lot of my information on this market, at least.
It's great information. So yeah, definitely the HOA. I mean, I don't want to deal with any HOAs at all. I want to be super picky with what I'm trying to take down for the portfolio. From what it sounds like to me, is that do you both, or maybe anybody else who's in the co-space, or I'm sorry, co-living space, might want to chime in on this. If you are you just taking like a 3-bed? I know, James, you said you have a 3-bedroom, 3-bath, and a 3-bedroom, 3-bath up top. Are you adding bedrooms to these properties, or are you just kind of you got what you got and then you're going with it?
With this one that we're talking about, it was already set up. We also helped another landlord. They're not going to work with us as the managers until they get tired of it, where they're working with pad split. So they had a 5-bedroom house. They could add another bedroom maybe downstairs, and the same with this 6-bedroom. They could cut out most of that living room and turn that into a bedroom. But I'm of the same mind as John. Like, let's make this so it's more of a community, not like just packed in like sardines. And pad split's okay with that. But we are set up with a local builder. If there's an opportunity to add bedrooms, and we can sink some money into adding those, and it makes sense, we'll do that for sure.
Right. And then so are you, sorry for the questions.
That's what this is for, right, John?
Right, hopefully. So then is there that fine line between saying I want to go co-living or I want to do midterm rental?
You could. There's nothing that says you can't do both at the same time. And I think pad split now, like their average is 9 months, or some people are getting like 1.5 years.
Yeah.
Tendency off of that.
Yeah.
So it's almost the same. When I first started in the community, I started, like a lot of people, wholesaling that, I don't have time for that. I'm in the military. I'm about to get deployed again. And then I started to do connection, and then some people lost some money, which I'm still trying to get my partner's money back from that. And I started to facilitate. Well, part of facilitation, by the way, Lance Riggin was the one that coined that term, not me, was doing a lot of underwriting. And so I would do long-term, medium-term, short-term underwriting for the assets, and then I would also overlay co-living for each one of those. So, and the easiest example, I guess, would be like a 4-plex, where 2 of the units are long-term, 1 of the units is medium-term, and 1 of the units is short-term. Well, the one that has the least buy-in is going to be that long-term, because typically you're not furnishing those units. For me, co-living, I will furnish everything in the common areas, but not the private bedrooms, just so that they can make that their own. It's not a hotel, that type of thing. Medium-term, you're going to have to furnish it, and then just flipping it from medium-term to short-term, like that's super easy. It's just a management and hospitality type of mentality there. So it's just like a spectrum of the amount of stuff that you want to put inside of the house and have prepared for them.
Right. I was just wondering if there's like if you go with a pad split, because pad split isn't in Sacramento area. So, but Furnish Finder is, right? So if I wanted to do a midterm and get traveling nurses, Furnish Finder might be the best resource for me, being in NorCal. But I just didn't know if there's like a exclusivity agreement that pad split wants, hey, you can't use another service, or vice versa.
I think it's got to be all pad split.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I know they have some rules around like house hacking, like it can't be your own place, just keep everything separate. So I don't know for sure.
I know for Furnished Finder, they charge by the listing. So, like one of the Furnished Finder hacks, I guess, is you just talk about the building instead of the specific room inside of the building, and then you're more or less advertising all of the rooms, or you're advertising one room, but on your walkthrough it shows them all of the rooms, that type of thing. Because talking with Furnished Finder, which is mostly nurses, but a lot more businesses are looking at that. And my place down by the airport, I just don't have time to build relationships with airlines so that when they crash pads, they're called crash pads, they would pretty much master lease my place, and then they would put their crews inside of that area, inside of the property, overnight, that type of thing. But Furnished Finder is getting more corporate clients in that regard, and you can mix the property in that case.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you both for answering the questions. It's just I know I saw a recent video by Pace, and he said that he's no longer using pad split at all. So just kind of wondering what's going on with all that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there. I know Corey Enman, he's part of the mastermind we're in, and he's in Phoenix. He tried doing this without pad split, and he just kind of ended up throwing up his arms and just joining with them, even though they charge that extra 8%. He's just like, they just do such a better job filling. Although I've heard other people saying they're filling them with tenants that aren't great. Although they're also kind of making adjustments to where the manager or the landlord has more say in who's coming in there. Of course, you got to watch out for your fair housing laws, so you got to tiptoe around that, make sure you're compliant. But yeah, just point is that he said they just did such a better job than he could do. So
aren't they taking the first 10 days money as well?
They do. When they came in and spoke at our cash flow club, they said they were going to waive that for I don't know how long, just because they're kind of getting things off the ground in Denver. So I don't know if they're going to back off on that. I do know we just read through their lease. It was a lot. It was 20 pages. And in there was one part that said something about after the first 180 days, it was kind of up in the air what that agreement, that split was going to be, whether it was 8%. And it didn't mention the 10 days, but at this point, they're waiving that 10 days, which you're dancing around the motivation, right? Like, they're motivated to get somebody in there, as are we. But if they get somebody crappy and they take 10 days, the first 10 days, and then those people bail after 30 days, it's like, oh shit, that wasn't worth it, so I don't know. Who else is on here? Alonia, Johnny, what do you guys have questions?
Yeah, kind of came in for some fresh ideas. I started doing co-living this summer with a business partner in Arizona. So we do have 2 properties. The third one is on the way, but we set up a management company, so we do not work with pad split, and it's a challenge. Kind of trying to figure out now what went right, like sort of fishing in the wrong pond, essentially. But what we do is like a high-end co-living, essentially. It's so we buy typically it's 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom houses. We convert it to like 7 or 8 bedrooms and 7 or 8 bathrooms. So each room has its own bathroom. And we furnish rooms as well, so it's more like a hotel style-ish with the AC, TV, etc. But yeah, kind of trying to figure out it seems like Pat's Play has a brand name, even with the tenants, so that's a huge thing. They definitely do not care who they rent it to, because they get the money either way. The investor is the one who gets screwed if the tenant picks up stuff and leaves the next week. So we but then, they do have an established network of tenants, essentially, and seems like that could be an issue. I don't know. I came for the ideas on, where else we should be looking for those tenants.
What type of problem are you trying to solve with
Find
co-living?
tenants. So, with the co-living, same, like affordable housing. We are 30% cheaper than one. It's like 20% cheaper than a studio and like 30 to 40% cheaper than a one-bedroom apartment. And again, there is no broker's fee, no last month. It's a weekly rent, security deposit. It's just like nothing essentially. So it's in that space. It's just for some reason there's some issues with the tenants.
Have you spoken with agents at all? So like James, I was working on this current house as a rent to own, and like people, they didn't understand, they didn't want to understand, or what have you. And so it was really tough. I didn't have enough time to like create relationships after I purchased it. Create relationships with Hispanic agents, people who can't get like the mortgage. Jeez, I have this frog in
Hey, Angela, I saw you're with EXP too. Just a little side note. I'm with them too.
A bunch of troublemakers, that EXP group.
Yeah, just a bunch of recruiters.
I know, MLM or whatever. But
right.
No, I mean, take EXP. I know a lot of agents down here, they have a lot of Hispanic clientele, and, they're bilingual, and they know that. And when I started to reach out to them, they actually started to vet me. Like, oh, why would you want, this person, that person, why are you getting into this type of space? Okay.
So I haven't obviously done it, but I feel like with the Hispanic people, they're usually like families, right? And like we wanted to be rented to a single person room, like our room essentially for like one person.
Okay. So you're looking at like young professionals.
Yeah, young professionals, or someone who is just trying to get their life together, or moved, got divorced, has a terrible credit score, or I don't know, I don't know.
Well, right there, divorce. That's a really good one to look at. You can start talking to like attorneys and all that other stuff, and then they can do that. I actually I closed it right before the meeting, but different marketing things. You're down in Phoenix.
Yeah.
Are there a lot of like tech companies? I know like Austin down there.
I mean, I myself in Massachusetts, but well, I know they're opening like a subconductor, whatever, factory that they're bringing in people from Vietnam for that, which is weird. And like the houses themselves, like I would say even like C communities next to like warehouses, industrial, commercial zone. So yeah, I don't know. That's definitely doing something that we're not doing.
No, so without looking at like all of the houses and everything, so I'm just hearing some dissonance between the people you're trying to target, the properties that you have, and then the areas that they're in. Because if we're talking, like I also try to serve single mothers, and so to me, a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, where I have 2 bedrooms, 1 bath upstairs, and the same thing downstairs, and all their sharing is going to be that laundry room and the kitchen, like perfect, because mom has her room, the kids have their room, and that can be pretty good. and that can happen, anywhere. In Colorado, I know there's bi-levels, where it splits immediately from the door as soon as you get in, all over the place. And those are in all types of neighborhoods. But when we're talking about like a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and you're throwing in an additional like 4 bedrooms.
Yeah. It's
How?
like each room has its own bathroom.
And each one has its own bathroom, because that was another one. Talking
Yeah,
with people, they're
private
like,
bathrooms.
I don't want to share a bathroom if I have my kid with me, because some of these people were like, yeah, I have my kid with me, I'm willing to do, because I always say, hey, are you interested in having housemates? Something innocuous like that, without inundating them with information. And they're like, yes, but I want my own bathroom for me and my kids. But if you're trying to do like the single parents thing, Gaylord of the Rockies, one of my biggest issues is that they don't have bathtubs, because my 3-year-old, he'll take showers, but he prefers bathtubs. So it's the product is going to attract those types of people.
Yeah, no, I would say it's definitely not for like a couple or someone with the child. It's more really like a single person. So that
but it's a C neighborhood. One of my properties, the first one, he only wanted to rent it for 6 months with him and his friends. And I asked why only 6 months. ITIN holder, he didn't have credit, X, Y, and Z, but it was him and like 4 other male adults. So you might not look for like individuals, you might look for I guess like a fraternity.
That's an option too. But the question is, where do you find those people? Where did you find that person?
Home Depot, Lowe's, the same place that you find cheap under the table labor.
So how did you find it here? Did you just randomly met that person there? Did you, I don't know, put ads somewhere?
Maybe not you walking up to people.
Yeah.
But obviously somebody boots on the ground because you're in Massachusetts. But I mean, they're sitting out there by the food trucks right there by the lumberyard. Like it's the same thing. Lowe's, Home Depot, there's the lumberyard, and then it goes to a major street, and there's all the food trucks like right there. And there's a whole bunch of dudes with beat up trucks. Like those are the people that you can talk to. Because if you're 30% under, like chances are that they're looking for something affordable to either save up money or send money back home.
Right.
Especially down in Phoenix, you probably have a lot of, I guess, migratory labor, as opposed to like up here, it's more families, Hispanic families, as opposed to, where the guys will just come, work for a season, and then go back, that type of thing. And especially like C neighborhood, because if you're trying to target individuals, I bet if they're moving to Phoenix as an individual, they're not going to want to live in a C neighborhood.
Gonna go make a few stops at Home Depot.
And you know what? It might be a dead end. And then again, find people who have ins into those different communities. I'll go back to the agents, because they talk with people. That's all they do, is just try and talk and create their Rolodex and everything, just like a wholesaler, right? So yeah, I would definitely like find somebody who has an in that community, or actually go into that community yourself and start asking questions.
Thank you.
Who else did I hear? Ashley had to go. Still calling me. Johnny, what's going on?
Hey everybody, can you hear me?
Yeah, what's going on?
Hey man, I'm just super excited to be in this Zoom. I'll turn my camera on even though I'm driving. But yeah, I just really wanted to chime in and get some information on co-living. I have been in Subto about 6 months. Been doing some wholesale in my market. And, eventually I wanted to dive off into co-living. and build up a portfolio there. So I wanted to chime in and soak up some great information. I was able to get my partner on here as well, who already has a home up and running, and we just wanted to get more information and so we can go further.
No,
Who's
that's
your
awesome.
partner? Who's your partner, and what market or markets are you in?
So her name is Drea, and we're in the Michigan market.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So
Where in Michigan?
So we're in Genesee County.
No idea. I grew up south side of Chicago, so I know a little bit about Michigan.
Yup. It's a pretty interesting city here. And from what I'm hearing, and again, I'm just trying to, open my knowledge on what co-living is that basically just, meeting the need for the community. I know I read your post, you talked about like DV and, some other things. I do have a background in social work, so it kind of sounded like,
Perfect.
it sounded like for me, and I think I messaged you a little bit about this, but just trying to pair my social work skills set with a little bit of creative financing as well,
Yeah, and so that's part of it. Like my whole why is to help underserved populations in my communities, starting in Colorado Springs, and then I'm going to expand from there. And no, you being with social work. So my first co-living property is actually master leased to an individual who does nothing but outreach to nonprofits. So he is renting it, and he is getting obviously a larger sum from the nonprofits per bed that he provides. We're talking domestic violence survivors, single mothers, sober living, stuff like that. And I will say, if you treat your residents right and you take a little hit at the beginning, it's going to make up for it in two ways. They're going to stay longer, but even if they leave, what's 1 out of 4 bedrooms? Like right now, I have 3 out of my 4 bedrooms filled, and I'm making $200 over all of my bills, filling up my reserve bucket. Once I get that 4th bedroom, it's going to be $850 of pure profit every month. So, like cutting it, like Eliona, am I saying that right? Like hers are 30% under, and that's going to attract people. Now, also be careful, because you might start attracting individuals you don't want in your houses. But then you have to do your own due diligence. But being able to provide affordable housing and treating people with respect, and also having firm boundaries at the same time, it's going to come back, because these things just produce so much money for you and your partners, whether that's equity partners or operations partners. So no, that's really good. And you already being in like the social work, you have the networks in like the social work, what have you. I'm lost for words on that, but that's going to help you at the end of the day, because those are the individuals that are going to be most attracted to this.
Yeah. Yep. So are you guys, how does, a question that I had was, I see that you're using seller financing to acquire your properties for your co-living homes. Did you start off using creative financing with these homes, or was it a different strategy?
So my most recent one, I spent $22,000, so about 5% down, and it's a strict Subto. Everything else I've been using VA loans. I've been doing live-in flips on the other 3 houses that I have. So I just have a little baby portfolio. I just speak my mind and am highly opinionated. I know James, he's been crushing it for a while. Actually, James is, when we were up at a Denver meetup, he was one of the first people I met, I believe. So, yeah, it's another tool in the toolbox. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, I only have seller finance or, you know, creative finance houses, which is fantastic. I just don't have the ability. I bring on partners 100% of the time, and it typically, like, sub twos never pencil out, or I can't put a PML in second position because there's only $5,000 worth of equity, you know? So it really depends on your situation. Do you have other properties that you can cross collateralize, and then that snowballs in and of itself? Can you find these? If it's a screaming deal and you're not paying that wholesaler like tens of thousands of dollars, like, somebody else is going to scoop that up, like, at the end of the day. So, I mean, it's still competitive. The ones that you find, especially if you're just starting out, they're going to be base hits. Like this little guy, I don't know how many people I reached out to, and it turned out they all just use cartel mode from Investor Lift, trying to, like, dispo this thing, and it's like, it's not moving, guys. Like, thank you very much for trying to dispo. I've already spent holding costs. I'm going to switch to co-living, which was my plan from the beginning if I couldn't do the rent to own. So, which goes back to always have your primary alternate plans in place, you know, when you start to put money on the table. So, but that being said, I am looking at this, like, Class A, and I'm going to try and do a DSCR on that one. You know, depending, it could be 15, it could be 25%, depending on who I get for my equity partners who are going to bring all the capital. Because, by the way, the military doesn't pay a whole lot of money, so which is good for my capital partners. But yeah, does that answer your question, John?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, if we run into an opportunity where we need to reach out or ask further questions, what would be the best way to connect with you? I mean, I know you're in the Subto group, but, you know, what's the best way to go about it?
Yeah, Facebook is probably the best. Everybody should have gotten an invite from my email. That's my non-personal, that's my real estate email. So you can email me. My cell phone's right there. I'll try to get to you. If I have connectivity, sometimes I don't, because I have properties up in the mountains, so it might take me a couple of days to get back to you. But yeah, reach out to me any which way. I check all of them all the time. I'm a connector at heart, so I try to network with as many people as possible.
Hey, John and James, and Johnny's question was actually perfect segue into. I watched one of Jamil's videos on YouTube a few days ago, from like 3 weeks ago, and where he and his sister took down a property. It was a wholesale property, and you know, it had obviously baked in equity, and they actually just are fixing it up to where they want it, you know, how they want it. 6 bed, 6 bath. It's like 1,500 square feet. And there's going to be some equity in there. They just got a, you know, PML, or I don't know if it turned into a PMP, but I think it was a PML where they came in, and I don't know if you guys have seen the video, but they came in and invested the money, and for the rehab as well. And it was a cash deal, obviously, and they are fixing it up, going to turn around and put it on pad split, and they're going to make like 28% cash on cash return on the property, and, you know, with equity. So I guess, you know, Johnny's question was, you know, was there creative finance deals that you're taking down, or and then the segue would be, are you also thinking, or it might be a good opportunity to find these great wholesale deals where you bring in a PML or a PMP and say, hey, let's take this down, make it how we want it from the get-go, and then make some crazy amount of money on it. And then they're cash out refi, doing the DSCR loan on it, and to where the PML or PMP only has 15-20% money in it.
So for me, it depends on risk. So I always try to get it to float as a long-term rental, single family. Throwing that much money, like Jamil and like Pace and even Justin Tumanowski, I was just watching him taking down like an old church or something today. Like they have the crumple zone inside of the reserves for things to go awry. But if you don't, I would just caution you on being like, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna do co-living specifically for a property. And it's like, okay, that's fantastic, but what happens if you can't? What happens if that thing sits 50% vacant for a long time? Like, the issues with long-term renting and with co-living, they're not necessarily mutually exclusive. People only move at certain times, and unless you have a really good lead magnet for individuals that want to rent rooms, or a small family that is willing to have housemates and rent 2 rooms, I would just caution going whole hog into a property like that. Whatever it was, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, they're just going to double it. And it's like, okay, they can take those types of risks because they have the ability to. And then, okay, when you start knocking down walls or you start deleting living rooms and you start putting in bedrooms, and now you want to exit from that strategy, what's that market look like? Having the end in mind. Just again, creating your primary and alternate. And my fallback is always single family long-term rental is the worst that I want to do.
Right. So you're always underwriting for LTRs, kind of like Abraham Gray talks about, right? He wants that $300 nut per month, to make sure that he's at least profiting on an LTR as opposed to anything else that could be even more lucrative.
And because I bring in partners 100% of the time, I show them like, this is the worst case scenario. This is how I'm going to pay you back. And this is the return that I can offer you in the worst case. And when it comes to private money lender, they're actually better off because it's a guarantee. Whereas private money partner, now there's, a split, or I offer mine 100% of cash flow until they're recouped, and I just take a property management fee. But if it's at 50% vacancy and we're only making $200 over the bills, like, sorry, dude, like co-living, I was expecting 700, but we're a little bit less this month. So, and yeah, I charge, if I do month-to-month leases that auto renew, and if they don't stay a minimum of 90 days, I take their security deposit, and that's in the lease. So there's a little bit of give and take there, but obviously the goal is to have 100% occupancy on that, but shit happens.
Yeah, and you don't have that opportunity with pad split, correct? Where you're keeping deposits?
Yeah, no security deposit.
Okay.
Yeah.
They don't have security deposits at all?
No. The only money would be a move-in fee, which is negotiable, like kind of up to the landlord or the manager to charge that or not. Like if we're not getting bookings, then let's maybe drop it down or just eliminate that move-in fee. But yeah, there's no deposit.
Interesting.
I was gonna also caution, like Subto, there's a lot to dig into here. I know like Reed Clanahan, he's the one I was mentioning. He's got 30 some properties, all Subto. He's gotten himself into some hot water. I don't know if anybody's caught wind of that.
Who is this?
Reed Clanahan. He's out of Durango, Colorado, but most of his deals are Dallas, Phoenix, I believe, maybe one other market. But anyway, and I don't want to talk shit about him. I'm just putting a little word of caution out there. Like Subto and co-living, it's like, you're adding fuel to the fire when you can get those low interest rates, right? But there's a lot of ways it can go south where you might end up hurting that seller. Up front, like if things don't go right, if you don't underwrite conservatively, like John, you're saying, like we do, we want to run it as a long-term rental as plan B, worst case scenario. But maybe helping that seller up front, but if once you set up a co-living house, you want to keep that sucker, right? Like you don't want to have to convert it back or sell it. So you want to make sure that you're thinking about that seller, maybe trying to figure out what your next step is if they need to get out and they want to go buy a house down the road, right? So they're not locked into that. And of course, you don't want to balloon. Never do balloons where you're promising them you're going to get out, because rates may go up and then you might not be able to cash flow at all, or you're negative, then you put yourself in a bad spot and them. So, and there's also just, as any of you guys know that gotten into the Subto stuff, there's a lot of paperwork that has to be done right. So if you're going to do it, I just say get with somebody that's done them, not just theorizing. Like me, I've been Subto a long time and I haven't done one yet because for different reasons. It's hard to make them cash flow in Colorado, and finding them, it was hard during COVID because of moratoriums, trying to even find them. But without rambling too much more, I just say, find somebody that's done them in your state, seen them through, and use a TC, transaction coordinator, to help you get that paperwork set up right. Because there's a lot of ways that it can be done wrong. It's happening constantly. Like Pace opened up a can of worms here, and people aren't following his methodology, and of course he loses his mind and he'll talk for 2 hours about it. Anyway, I guess that's all I got to say about that.
When I was facilitating other people's deals, and how I was doing it is I was forming an LLC, and like a wholesaler or fix and flipper had a property but they needed money. Well, in order to protect my PML friends, I would create an LLC. We would close into my LLC, me as the manager, and then I would bring in the PML money, so that I can have more control. And I'm talking with some of these people, and they're like, I'm buying a short-term rental. It started to become one of my biggest pet peeves. And it's like, you're not buying a short-term rental. You're buying a single-family house that you're going to operate as a short-term rental. And then you can change the operation. But the underlying financing, the underlying nature of a single-family property doesn't necessarily change based on the operation that you're running it. Yeah, there's like maintenance issues and all that other stuff, but it almost segmented. And to James' point, like, hey, if it's a Subto, you're going to spend so much time on like all the paperwork and all that other stuff over here that you might not have thought about, like spending all the money in order to go to Walmart to go get a new vacuum and a new carpet shampooer and an electric lawnmower and all the other things that you need in order to outfit one of these houses to provide a complete product for your future residents. And so it's, it's like two different types of operations that occur. One is like the property management, and one is the asset management. So just make sure that they're not like synonymous, because you should be able to change how you're operating your properties, or in my opinion, you have to have that flexibility. And if not, that's when you start running into issues where rates change, laws change, all these other things, and it's like, I bought this property for this specific reason and it no longer works, and now I'm underwater. It's like, dang it. So
that's really good information. So to you, John and James, specifically, anybody else want to chime in again? What are you looking for? Obviously, so I've been a part of Astro Flipping for 5 years, and I was doing the wholesale method for, really strong for 2, 3. And then I actually have a marketing business as well that I stepped away and just said, I'm going to do the marketing. And then now I'm like, I got to get back into real estate. So I'm going full-fledged back in into 2025, and really want to do some amazing things, but don't want to, I want to hold assets. I don't want to, do the wholesale thing too much anymore. So, if I have to, I will, I'll do a few things here and there. But my question to you would be, what are you looking for as far as like, if you were in my if I was in your situation, what would you be looking for as far as, am I looking for a Subto? Am I looking for a cash deal? Just taking over an asset for somebody else and making the difference? What do you typically look for?
It depends. Right. So like a cash deal, it would have to be a house with really good bones, where I come in with hard money, I purchase that thing, and then I'm able to configure it using the comps in the area, and then slap a DSCR on the backside against that cash deal in order to get money out, recoup X, Y, and Z, right? Traditional BRRRR method. With Subto, like, it really depends on the seller. Like this one that I'm trying to take down, this Class A, the guy says that he's willing to beat any traditional banks' terms and payments and all that. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? So now I have to go to a bank and I have to get pre-qualified and all that other stuff, and you're going to beat it by how much? And it's just having a conversation. So he wants to do it. He's also, his LLC owns the property, so he tried to do an STR, and he's looking to get out and get that, guaranteed money month after month. So yeah, it really depends on the asset, where it is, price, or condition, all that stuff. Like, and when it comes to like hard money, that's throwing another like headache that I don't have time for. Like, I'm either looking for a Subto or a DSCR buy-in, because I can't run a job site right now. I work 12 hours per day myself with my W-2. So
Hey, I got to jump off here, guys.
yeah, I was about to say we're about 20 minutes longer than what I wanted to do. Like, I didn't go into like specific things like chores and all that other stuff. I want to do this maybe not every week, maybe once or twice a month. Bring more people in, get a discussion going on how we're operating different assets, different changes that we're seeing, and just have like these types of conversations. What do you guys think?
Sounds good.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for putting this together.
Yeah, thank
John.
you.
Yeah, and I think it's really good that people start talking about this, because this is, affordable housing is definitely, in my heart. I think it's doing the most good. So for everybody, seller, buyer, and tenant. But yeah, with that, guys, hey, thank you for coming. I'll probably in like 2 weeks sending out another email, see if there's any interest. Try and get other high-end players in the game, see if they want to come on and talk with us.
Sounds awesome. Thank you for your
All
time.
right, guys.
Thank you.
Sweet.
Yeah, have a good one.
Bye.
Happy New
Happy New
Year.
Year.